I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I've been in watch collecting for about 5 years, and I've been doing this for about 2, but I have bought and sold a lot of watches as a result of the channel and my own personal collection. And what I've found is that there's a particular set of watches that I continually make this mistake on. And I want to focus on those 3 types. I've made a video similar to this before. You can find that up above, where I talk about general regrets in the watch industry. And one of those is the hype watch. And so I won't cover that here, but that is a common mistake, is just buying the one that everyone's talking about right now. But I want to focus mainly on 3 different ones. One of them is going to be a repeat of the prior video, but I think it's important to highlight it a little bit more in depth. So let's talk about some issues that we have as watch enthusiasts. The first is the classic. And the reason why I say the classic is because I think a lot of times we buy something because other people tell us it's a classic, or more specifically, the future classic. If something is a future classic, it means that it has a lot of the elements that you find in a classic style watch, right? Your Submariners, your Explorers, your Omega Seamasters, your Omega Speedmasters, your Breitling Navitimers, these watches that have been around for decades and haven't really changed that much over the course of that time, and that's why they're considered a classic. So calling something a future classic, I think, is a little misleading. I think it attempts to give the value that people find in decades worth of history in a phrase. I think the problem with that is people are using hope and expectation, almost like people do with investment style watches, where they think the value is going to go up. They use that as a reason to buy the watch, rather than, again, the core, and I'll go over this multiple times, the core of why you should buy a watch, which is that it fits your style. It fits your day-to-day life, meaning if you wear a G-Shock because you're dealing with concrete all day, then you should wear a G-Shock. Don't bring a Datejust out there. But it fits your life, it fits your style, and it fits comfortably. Ideally, you have extraneous values, meaning that it makes you feel good, or that you appreciate it, or that you recognize how lucky or how blessed you are. All those things are, I think, ancillary and not necessarily something you can buy something expecting to have that feeling, but they're nice to have. Either way, so the future classic is something that bothers me because you don't know. And I think that I try, maybe I've said it in a few other videos, but I try to not say it because, although it's a common phrase, it is misleading. The second one is a similar thing, meaning that before you've bought a watch, you have these hopes and expectations, right? A future classic is an expectation of a potential future outcome. This is an expectation of how you'll look at the watch, and that's an Instagram watch. Now, I say an Instagram watch because if you're on Instagram and you look at posts that people put on there, you'll find these images that look awesome. Like, these watches look really nice. And the reason why is because they're using really nice lenses first, right? So you use something like this. This is a 90mm macro lens from Sony. I love this lens. It's also a $1,000 lens, but it gives you nice clarity. Then they will make sure that they've adjusted the look of the photo so that you have a nice color contrast. You have things in and out of depth of field. And then ideally, a lot of times you'll see a lot of different Instagrams where they will increase the contrast. And the contrast is basically the separation of one thing from another. So you may have a watch that looks really legible, but isn't actually legible because it was taken at a specific angle where there weren't any reflections and they boosted the contrast. There are a lot of other elements you can have when it comes to editing a photo after you've taken it that are involved in every single one of those popular Instagram watch channels or accounts, whatever you want to call them. They all do a lot of editing of those photos. And so you're getting a filtered version of the watch. You're getting a view of something that you think you're going to look at and feel a certain way about, but when you have it in person, it doesn't feel like that. A good example in my experience is my Explorer 2. If you look at shots of the Explorer 2, and I think I pointed this out in the review, there are beautiful videos and photos of that watch where it looks fantastic. There's an obvious separation between the dial and the bezel, and you know, it looks like a very legible, very cool tool watch. When you have it in person, and especially like if you're in a low light situation or you're just, wearing it and you look over at it, the watch can look very, very different in different lighting. There's a classic Jerry Seinfeld joke where she looks different, the woman that he's with looks different in different lighting.
Hi.
When?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's like that a lot of times with an Instagram watch, because not because the watch looks very different from one moment to the next, but because you have this idea of what the way you think the watch should look and the way it is looking in reality. And because those aren't meeting, it downgrades the watch in your eyes. And I have had that with both the Speedmaster and the Explorer 2, where I've had moments where I look at it and I think, why can't it just look like this really cool looking shot I just saw on Instagram? So be careful of that. Look at the watch in person before you buy it as much as possible. Some shops you have to buy online, I get that. Some shops you buy online and you could potentially return, that's fine. But keep in mind that you should always get your hands on the watch and wear it in a non-jewelry lit environment, like wear it and step away from the counter so that you can see exactly what it will look like on a day-to-day basis, and then get an idea of, whether or not you like it. But just keep that in mind, that the Instagram posts are not how the watches really look in person. The last one is the one that bothers me the most, and that is a value for money watch. And the reason why it bothers me is because I feel like, again, we have these classic things of why we look at buying a watch. You have lug-to-lug measurement, diameter, you have thickness, you have general design, brand, movement in the back. These are some of the core reasons why you should buy a watch. Again, fits your style and fits your day-to-day life are important. So those 8 things, let's say. And this isn't exhaustive. There are many other reasons why you should look at or buy a watch. I think it's a better descriptor than it is a reason to buy, right? So an example of that is Tudor is known for being great value for money. And it's true. It's a great movement in there. It's obviously a brand that's tied to Rolex. It has a lot of the same history because it's essentially the same company, just a different brand at a lower price point. They've automated their entire production process. So robots are putting it together, which means they can push out massive numbers of watches for less money, which means they can pass that extra savings off and allow you to buy a watch that's really well made. And with, again, a brand that people seem to respect a lot, at least in the last 2 decades, myself included, for less money. So you say, oh, it's great value for money, so therefore I should consider it. Now, we as humans make buying decisions based on value a lot. If you look at 3 products and you see, here's product A, it's $10, but it's, like only so good. You've got product C, which is really expensive, but it's the best. Most humans buy product B, which is, it is better than the worst. It is pretty good. It's, let's say the lowest one is 60% and this one's 80% of the way to the high quality one, but it's a middle ground. It's not the lowest price, but it's a better priced. It's because we feel like we're getting a better value for our money. I personally have walked around, like I work out in a gym. I look at the plates when I'm gonna buy it and I think about the cost per pound of plate when I look on Facebook Marketplace or wherever I'm buying them from. And you think about what is the value I'm getting out of the dollar that I'm spending. And all that's fine. The problem is sometimes that can override our reasoning as to why we wanted it in the first place. If I look at a watch and I say, that's great value for money, there are so many good things about it, I may forget the fact that the reason why I wanted the watch is because it's a dive watch and it fits my day-to-day life and it's got great lug-to-lug and great diameter. Because once you buy it, the value for money part isn't something you think about every day, right? You think about how it wears, how it feels, how it looks, how it's designed, all that good stuff. You don't think about, well, but it's $4,000 when it should be much more, right? You think about that in the buying process, but not in the retaining or keeping process. So you have to make sure that, in my mind, as much as possible, I try to, if anyone emails me and asks, I've got this and this I'm thinking about. Usually the question is, I've got this watch I really want. I've got this watch that's basically the same, but it's like 1/10 of the price. And I understand as a human, like, again, these watches are ridiculously expensive. There's no reason why I should be wearing several $1,000s on my wrist, but it's fun. So, at least I recognize that anything over $100 on a watch is, you know, it's extraneous. It's not necessary for our day-to-day life. And again, it's expensive, but it's important to always remember that if you want something, you need to get that thing, right? Take your time with your decision and buy once, cry once, right? Don't buy the lower price one because you're gonna sell it. Unless, you know, you're that kind of person who just bought it, it does fit your day-to-day life, and you think, well, I'm good, and you stop watching videos like this, and then you don't keep obsessing. I'm someone that obsesses. So after I bought the lower priced one, every single time I've gone back, sold it, and bought the other one. Omega Speedmaster Reduced. I bought that. It was way less expensive. It was like, I think $1,100 at the time, or $1,200 at the time from Japan. Great value for money, all this good stuff. It's a third of the price of an Omega Speedmaster used. You know, it's 20% of the price of a retail model. I'm good. I don't need anything else. This is still a Speedmaster. It wasn't the watch I wanted. So I had to end up selling it and then going and buying the other one. I took a haircut when I sold it. So just keep that in mind. I always, when people ask me my opinion or my suggestion, I try to tell them buy once, cry once. Pick the watch you want, pick what you want, and just go after that. The more you look at value for money or the value in a specific watch, the more you're going to lead yourself down buying something you may not necessarily like as much as the other thing. So keep that in mind. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. If you have any other advice or opinion or examples of these sorts of things, also please let everyone know down below. I always think that's important. If you want to join our Discord, links down below as well. And do me a favor and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.